Have you ever wondered why out of all places ants sometimes choose your house to enter? Why, despite your cleaning and efforts, they suddenly appear in your kitchen, on your walls, or near your food? My brothers and sisters, nothing in this world happens without the permission of Allah. Even the smallest ant, so tiny and unnoticed by many, is part of Allah's plan. And when these ants walk into your home, they are not random visitors. They may be carrying a sign, a message, a reminder from Allah Almighty. Ants are among the most disciplined of Allah's creation. They move in order, they follow their leader, and they work together with patience and unity. Allah mentions the ant in the Quran, in Surah An-Naml, reminding us that even this tiny creature has wisdom, has speech, and has lessons for mankind. So when Allah allows them to appear before you, it is not to irritate you, but to awaken your heart. Perhaps it is a sign that you need to look at your blessings again. Ants are attracted to food. Could it be that Allah is showing you how much provision He has given you and reminding you to be grateful, to not waste, and to share with others? Perhaps it is a sign of unity and discipline, that your household needs more cooperation, patience, and harmony. Or perhaps it is simply a reminder of humility, that no matter how big and powerful we think we are, Allah can send a creature so small to enter our homes, and we cannot stop them. My brothers and sisters, when ants come into your home, do not only reach for the spray or the broom. Pause for a moment and think, what lesson is Allah teaching me through this? Is it gratitude? Is it humility? Is it patience? Or is it discipline? The believer does not see things as accidents. The believer sees them as reminders. When we say that nothing happens without the permission of Allah, it means that every single event, no matter how small or insignificant it may appear to us, is part of a greater plan designed by the Creator. The entrance of ants into your home may seem like a trivial inconvenience, something that can be brushed away or solved with a spray. But in reality, it is another sign of Allah's control over His creation. These ants, so tiny that we sometimes do not even notice them beneath our feet, are completely under the command of Allah. They do not enter a house without His will. They do not move in a line without His decree, and they do not gather food without His knowledge. Allah says in the Quran that not a leaf falls from a tree except that He knows it. If a leaf falling is within His knowledge, then how much more the crawling of an ant in your home? When ants appear in your living space, it is easy to look at as a nuisance or a test of patience. Yet for the believer, this is an opportunity to remind oneself that Allah is constantly sending us messages through His creation. Nothing is random, nothing is without meaning. We may not always understand the wisdom immediately, but the presence of ants can remind us of Allah's power, His perfection in planning, and the delicate balance He has created in this world. If Allah can command even the smallest creature to move exactly where He wishes, should that not increase our certainty that our lives, our difficulties, and our blessings are also carefully controlled by Him? Sometimes Allah uses small things to wake us up. Imagine how often people ignore the great signs around them: sunsets, rain, seasons, birth, death. If these massive reminders are overlooked, Allah may choose to send us lessons in the smallest ways through things like ants. These tiny insects become a mirror for our heart. They remind us that if Allah is allowing them into our space, perhaps He wants us to reflect. Are we grateful for our provision since ants come for food? Are we maintaining cleanliness since ants are attracted to crumbs and sugar? Are we humble enough to realize that we cannot control even the tiniest of Allah's armies? The Prophet ﷺ once said that if Allah wishes to guide someone, He opens their heart. Guidance can come from anywhere, sometimes from the words of a scholar, sometimes from an ayah of the Quran, and sometimes from something as small as an ant. For the believer, nothing is coincidence. If you are connected to Allah, you will see His signs everywhere, even in things that others dismiss as ordinary. The ants in your home then become a personal reminder. They whisper without words. Allah is in charge of everything. This realization should fill the heart with both awe and tranquility. Awe because we understand that our Lord is so powerful that even the tiniest creation cannot move except by His permission. Tranquility because we realize that if Allah can control ants, He can surely take care of our problems, our worries, and our needs. It should build our trust in Him and increase our patience. Instead of reacting with annoyance or frustration, a believer pauses and reflects. What is Allah teaching me at this moment? Nothing is random in a believer's life. The presence of ants is a subtle sign that Allah wants us to remember Him, to recognize His power, and to humble ourselves. If He can manage the affairs of creatures that are barely visible to the human eye, He is surely capable of managing our lives in the best possible way. And so through the smallest of creatures, Allah reminds us of the greatest of truths, that He is in full control and nothing happens without His permission. When Allah mentions something in the Quran, it is never without purpose. The Quran is a book of guidance, a manual for life, and every story, parable, and example carries wisdom. Among the countless creatures of the earth, Allah chose to mention the ant in Surah An-Nahl. This should immediately tell us that even the smallest creation, which we often overlook, has value, meaning, and lessons that can transform our perspective. The story of the ant is not just about an insect, it is about discipline, awareness, communication, and the realization that nothing is too small for Allah's attention. In Surah An-Nahl, Allah describes how Prophet Sulaiman, who was granted dominion over humans, jinn, and animals, once approached a valley of ants. One of the ants warned the others to retreat to their homes so they would not be crushed unknowingly by Sulaiman's army. This incident is profound. It shows that ants have awareness, they have a sense of community, they care for one another, and they recognize danger. Allah preserved this story in His book not for entertainment, but to show us that His creation, no matter how tiny, operates with wisdom. If an ant is wise enough to recognize danger and to warn its community, how much more should human beings who are blessed with intellect and revelation recognize the signs of Allah and act upon them? The ant becomes a symbol of this. Watch how they move in lines in order, each one following the other. They do not collide or scatter in chaos. This is a reflection of organization and unity. Compare this to our human communities, where often we see disunity, conflict, and lack of discipline. The ants teach us that strength is not in size, but in togetherness. A single ant may be insignificant, but an entire colony can carry loads many times their collective weight. They survive because of their cooperation. This is a reminder for believers that unity brings strength and disunity leads to weakness. When ants appear in our homes, we should remember this Quranic lesson. They are not just mindless creatures looking for crumbs. They are part of a system that Allah has praised by mentioning them in His revelation. Their presence can remind us to check our own lives. Are we disciplined in our prayers, in our routines, in our family responsibilities? Are we working together as a unit, or are we scattered like individuals only concerned with ourselves? Another lesson from the ant in the Quran is humility. Despite Prophet Sulaiman's immense power, he smiled at the words of the tiny ant. He did not crush it, mock it, or ignore. Instead, he thanked Allah for the blessing of understanding its speech. This teaches us to pay attention to even the smallest creation and to recognize that every creature glorifies Allah in its own way. Ants in your home may be a chance for you to reflect on this humility. If a prophet as great as Sulaiman could learn from an ant, then surely you and I can also learn from them. Ants are also a reminder of accountability. They work tirelessly to gather food for winter, storing and preparing for the future. Their foresight and effort teach us not to be lazy or short-sighted. Believers are meant to prepare for their ultimate future, the hereafter. Just as ants plan for what is ahead, we must plan for the day when we stand before Allah, ensuring that we have gathered enough good deeds to sustain us. Therefore, the mention of ants in the Quran transforms the way we look at them. They are not pests to be dismissed, but signs to be reflected upon. Their presence in our lives, whether in stories of revelation or in our very homes, is an invitation from Allah to open our eyes, to see wisdom in the smallest things, and to realign our lives with gratitude, humility. Through them, Allah shows us that guidance is everywhere, even in the crawl of a tiny creature that most people ignore. When ants come into your home, the first thing they are usually searching for is food. This simple behavior carries a deep lesson for us as believers. Food is one of the greatest blessings that Allah has given to mankind, yet it is often taken for granted. Many of us open our cupboards and see shelves filled with provisions, refrigerators stocked with fruits, vegetables, and drinks. and kitchens where meals are cooked multiple times a day. But how often do we stop and acknowledge that all of this is from Allah? The ants crawling towards even the tiniest crumb on the floor remind us that nothing should be wasted, and everything we have has been granted by the one who provides for all of his creation. Allah tells us in the Quran that He is the provider for every living being, and not a single creature exists on earth whose sustenance is not known and decreed by Him. When you see ants scurrying to collect small particles of food, you are witnessing the fulfillment of Allah. These creatures depend on Him just as we do. Their presence in your home may be a message that you too should reflect on your dependence on Allah for provision. It is not your job, your business, or your skills alone that feed you. It is Allah who provides through these. If He can ensure sustenance for ants that live underground, hidden from our eyes, then surely He can and will provide for you. Another lesson from the ants' search for food is the importance of gratitude. When food is abundant, it is easy to forget its value. Many people waste food carelessly, throwing away leftovers, letting fruits rot, or taking more than they can eat. Yet in many parts of the world, there are children and families who struggle for a single meal a day. Ants remind us of this reality. They do not waste what they find. A crumb that seems worthless to us is a treasure for them. In this way, Allah may be teaching us to reconsider how we treat His blessings. Each morsel of food is a gift, and wasting it is a form of ingratitude. The Prophet ﷺ warned against wasting food and taught us that even if a morsel falls from our hand, we should clean it and eat it rather than leave it to waste, because we do not know where the barakah lies. Sharing is another hidden reminder in this behavior. Ants do not hoard food selfishly for themselves alone. When one ant finds a source of food, it informs the others, and soon the entire colony benefits. This is a striking example of generosity and care for the community. In our homes, when food is plentiful, are we sharing with our neighbors, with the poor, with relatives who may be struggling, or are we keeping it to ourselves? Ants teach us that provision becomes more meaningful when it benefits others. Allah increases the blessings of those who share what they have, while those who withhold often find no satisfaction despite abundance. Cleanliness is another reflection tied to provision. Ants often enter when crumbs and leftovers are left unattended. This may be Allah's way of reminding us to maintain cleanliness in our homes. Cleanliness is half of faith, as the Prophet ﷺ taught us. By attracting ants, Allah could be nudging us towards better hygiene and care in handling His blessing. The same food that sustains us can also become a source of hardship if not respected properly. So when you see ants moving towards your food, let it stir your heart to gratitude. Say Alhamdulillah for what you have. Think of those who do not have. Use it wisely, share it generously, and keep it cleanly. The ants are not merely pests. They are reminders that provision is from Allah, that every bite is a blessing, and that gratitude and generosity are the keys to preserving barakah in our sustenance. Their tiny movements carry a powerful message. Value what Allah has given you, for it is not guaranteed, and it is always a test of how thankful you truly are. When we observe ants carefully, one of the most striking qualities we notice is their unity and discipline. They move in lines, follow an order, and never act in complete isolation. Each ant has a role, and together they function like a perfectly organized community. This is not by chance. It is by the design of Allah, who instilled in them a system of cooperation and harmony. Their existence shows us that strength is not always about size or individual power, but about how well a group can work together for a shared purpose. For human beings, especially for believers, this observation is a powerful reminder of how important unity and discipline are in our families, our communities, and our spiritual lives. Ants never argue about who should go first or who should carry the heaviest load. They move in cooperation, and even when the task seems impossible, they achieve it together. How often do we as humans allow pride, ego, and disagreements to divide us? Families break apart over small disputes. Communities split because of jealousy, and entire nations suffer because of disunity. Yet these tiny ants, without any wealth, status, or formal leadership as we know it, manage to survive and thrive through discipline. Their example shows us that our strength
as a community lies not in the individual, but in the collective. When people stand together with patience and harmony, they can overcome challenges that no single person could manage alone. This unity is not just physical, it is also about purpose. Ants are united by the goal of survival and provision for their colony. They do not waste time or energy in actions that do not serve this purpose. If we apply this lesson to our lives, we realize that believers are supposed to be united by their greater purpose, worshipping Allah and preparing for the hereafter. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that the believers are like one body. If one part of it is in pain, the whole body feels it. Yet in practice, we often forget this lesson and focus on our differences instead of our shared faith. The ants remind us that even the smallest creatures understand the importance of collective effort. So how much more should we, with intellect and revelation, prioritize unity? Discipline is another key lesson. Ants do not wander aimlessly. They are organized and committed to their task. They sacrifice personal comfort for the benefit of the group. For believers, discipline begins with prayer. Just as ants line up and move together in order, Muslims are called to line up in rows for salah, shoulder to shoulder, without gaps, equal before Allah. This physical discipline in worship is meant to extend to our daily lives. Discipline in how we spend our time, discipline in our speech, discipline in how we treat others. Without it, life becomes chaotic and wasteful. Ants show us that success comes when every member of a community takes responsibility and remains consistent in their efforts. Imagine a family that lives with the discipline and unity of ants. Each member plays their part, supports one another, and works towards shared goals. There would be less conflict, less selfishness, and more peace. Imagine a community that operated with the same harmony. There would be cooperation in helping the poor, in educating the young, in resolving disputes, and in strengthening faith. The ants' example is not about copying their behavior literally, but about reflecting on the principles Allah embedded in them. When ants appear in your home, it could be a reminder that your household needs more cooperation and discipline. Maybe family members are disconnected, each living in their own world. Maybe prayer is neglected as a group. Maybe there is a lack of communication and support. Allah could be showing you through ants that strength lies in coming together, in moving as one, in being patient and coordinated. So the next time you see a line of ants working tirelessly, do not dismiss them as insignificant. They are living signs of how order, discipline, and unity bring success, while chaos and selfishness lead to weak. They remind us that even the smallest creatures reflect Allah's wisdom, and if they can achieve so much through cooperation, then surely we as believers can achieve even more if we hold firmly together to the rope of Allah and avoid division. When ants enter our homes, one of the greatest lessons they bring is humility. These tiny creatures, so small that many people step on them without even noticing, remind us of how fragile and powerless we truly are. Human beings often live with an illusion of strength, control, and importance. We build tall buildings, invent technology, and accumulate wealth. And in the process, many forget how dependent we are on Allah. Then Allah allows a tiny ant to crawl into our homes, and suddenly, despite all our power and resources, we find ourselves unable to stop it completely. This is a silent but powerful reminder that no matter how advanced or strong we think we are still weak in front of Allah's creation. An ant may weigh less than a grain of rice, yet it can find its way into sealed containers, cupboards, or tiny cracks in the wall. Despite our efforts to block them, they often return. This is Allah's way of showing us that even the smallest of His armies can enter our fortress-like homes without permission. If a small insect can do this, what about the greater challenges in life? How can we ever feel secure or self-sufficient when we cannot even control such small matters? It humbles us to realize that only Allah has true control, and we are entirely dependent on Him for protection, guidance, and success. The Quran reminds us again and again about arrogance and how destructive it is. Iblis, the enemy of mankind, was cast out of paradise because of arrogance. Pharaoh, who declared himself a god, was destroyed despite his armies and treasure. Human arrogance blinds the heart to Allah's signs, and humility is the cure. The ants crawling on the floor whisper this lesson to us: do not let pride deceive you. If you think you are powerful, remember that you cannot even stop a line of ants without Allah's permission. This reminder of humility should also extend extend to how we treat others. Often people look down on those who are poorer, weaker or less educated, yet ants, in their smallness, show us that every creature has a role and value in Allah's creation. Just as ants live with purpose, every human being, no matter how humble, has dignity and importance. Learning humility from ants means acknowledging that we are all servants of Allah, equal in His sight and distinguished only by our piety. The Prophet of Allah taught that no one enters paradise if there is even a speck of arrogance in their heart. Observing these tiny creatures should soften our hearts, reminding us to lower our pride and to treat others with respect and kindness. Another reflection is how easily we can destroy ants without effort. A single step, a splash of water or a spray can end the lives of hundreds of them instantly. Yet despite their fragility, they live with determination and discipline. This contrast reminds us of the fragility of our own life. Death can come to us at any moment, with a small accident, a sudden illness, or something beyond our control. Just as ants live in constant effort, we too should live with purpose, remembering that life is short and fragile. Humility is born when we realize our dependence on Allah and the temporary nature of our worldly power. So when ants enter our homes, instead of seeing them only as pests, we can see them as tiny teachers. They teach us that arrogance has no place in the life of a believer. They teach us that our strength, wealth, and status mean nothing if we forget our Creator. They remind us that Allah's power is absolute and our lives are fragile and depend. To embrace humility is to acknowledge our weakness and Allah's greatness, and to live with gratitude, patience, and respect for all of His creation. When ants appear in our homes, the natural reaction for many people is irritation. We reach for sprays, powders, or ways to block them out. It feels like an invasion, something small that interrupts our comfort. But for a believer, everything in life should be seen as a potential reminder from Allah. Nothing happens without His knowledge, and nothing enters our lives without some wisdom behind it. Instead of allowing annoyance to be our first reaction, we can pause and ask ourselves, what lesson is Allah sending me through this? This shift in perspective turns an ordinary moment into an opportunity for spiritual growth. Ants are not random visitors. They are part of Allah's creation, each following a purpose designed by Him. Their presence is not to harm you, but to remind you. Some reminders are clear, such as the importance of gratitude when they gather around food, or the lesson of discipline when they move in perfect order. At other times, the reminder may be more subtle, like the need for patience when you see them repeatedly coming back despite your efforts. Every time they appear, Allah is offering you a chance to reflect, and if you take that chance, you grow in faith. If you ignore it and only respond with anger or frustration, you miss the wisdom. This approach of seeing signs in every event is a hallmark of true belief. A believer does not dismiss things as coincidence. When rain falls, he remembers mercy. When illness strikes, he remembers purification. When ants appear, he remembers humility, gratitude, patience, and discipline. Life becomes full of reminders that guide him back to Allah. This is why the Quran repeatedly calls on us to reflect on the signs around us, signs in the heavens, in the earth, and even in the creatures that crawl upon it. They are all part of Allah's communication with us, a language that is understood by those who open their heart. Another lesson in seeing ants as signs rather than irritations is the cultivation of patience. Many people become restless or angry at small inconveniences, but patience is one of the most beloved qualities to Allah, and it is often tested in small ways. The presence of ants may be one of those tests. Will you respond with harshness, or will you take a moment to reflect and handle the situation with calmness and thought? Sometimes the way we respond to the smallest trials shows the true state of our heart. Ants teach us that annoyance should not blind us to the wisdom hidden in the moment. It is also worth remembering that every creature glorifies Allah in its own way. The Quran tells us that not a single thing exists except that it praises Allah, though we may not understand its form of glorification. The ants crawling in your home are part of that divine chorus, living their lives in constant obedience to the system Allah has placed them. When we view them through this lens, they are not intruders, but worshippers of Allah, fulfilling their purpose. Their presence can inspire us to ask, am I fulfilling my own purpose as a servant of Allah with the same dedication that they show to their task? Reflecting on ants instead of dismissing them cultivates humility of the heart. It trains you to see wisdom in places where most people see nothing. This is the attitude of someone who is connected to Allah. He finds guidance in the smallest of signs. It transforms life into a journey of constant reminders where nothing is wasted and every moment has meaning. The ants then are not pests, but messengers. They enter your home with lessons written by Allah for you to uncover. If you look past the irritation and reflect sincerely, you will find wisdom that softens your heart, strengthens your faith, and draws you closer to your Creator. So the next time you see ants, remember, they are not here to disturb you, they are there to remind you. Each step they take, each crumb they carry, is part of a silent message from Allah. Will you turn away in annoyance, or will you pause to listen? The choice is yours, and in that choice lies the difference between missing a reminder and growing closer to the one who sent. When we reflect on the presence of ants in our homes, it becomes clear that they are not meaningless intruders, but silent messengers carrying lessons from Allah. Through them, Allah reminds us that nothing happens without His permission, that even the smallest creature is under His command. He draws our attention to the wisdom preserved in the Quran through the story of the ant, showing us that guidance can come from even the tiniest of His creation. Their search for food reminds us to be grateful for our sustenance, to avoid waste, and to share generously. Their discipline and unity highlight the power of cooperation, order, and patience, while their fragility and persistence humble us, reminding us of our own weakness before us. And above all, their appearance is a call to reflection rather than irritation, to see in them a sign that can guide our hearts back to the remembrance of Allah.
My brothers and sisters, the believer is someone who reads the world around him like an open book of science. He does not dismiss events as coincidence or creation as insignificant. Instead, he sees in everything a reminder of Allah's greatness, mercy. If a prophet as mighty as Sulaiman could smile at the speech of an ant and thank Allah for the lesson, then surely we too should humble ourselves and learn from these tiny creatures that crawl across our floors. So the next time ants enter your home, do not see them only as pests to be see them as a wake-up call from your Lord. Let them remind you to be grateful, to be humble, to be disciplined, to be united, and to be patient. Let them remind you that Allah's signs are everywhere, waiting for those with open eyes and soft hearts to notice. May Allah grant us the ability to learn from His creation, to take wisdom from the smallest of His signs, and to live as humble, grateful, and disciplined servants who recognize His greatness in everything around us.